Oh, and we're live. Oh, hang on. Uh, are we live? Yep, we're live. So you have to excuse me, I'm just making my way over all this mud because it has been quite rainy here. Uh, so this is going to be a quite interesting walk this morning. Definitely going to be there we go. Lots of slips, trips, and probably death-defying stunts. But it wouldn't be a good morning walk without that, I'm sure. And of course, we've also probably got, I don't know, probably some politics to talk about as usual. Oops, daisy. There we go. So we've got some people joining us already. Morning to you all. How are we all today? We all good? Ooh. Squelch, squelch, squelch. Ooh, ooh, ooh. There we go. This is where I realised I probably should have worn my wellies this morning. Oh, there we are. So we got good morning from, oh, I can't see it. I'll tell you what, wait a minute, we'll get to some shade. I can't read it because of the sun. But we're in a hurry today. Probably not going to be as long as we normally do today. Because for the first time since lockdown, we'll be going on a trip. We're going on a quest, on a journey. We're off to Doncaster to go see some people and have a drink. To be fantastic. First time probably since March since I've actually gone to see people in person and had a drink. So that will be incredibly nice. So looking forward to that later on. Oh, there we are. So who we got? So we got good morning from Jen T. Vic, good morning to you. Steve, good morning to you. T, good morning from Finland. Jen T, windy again. Yeah, unfortunately. Yes, I did see that actually. Shinzo Abe, the Japanese Prime Minister's retiring now. I don't follow Japanese politics, so I can't really say whether he's sort of a good Prime Minister or not. So, you know, I'll leave it up for you to tell everyone what you think of Mr. Abe, because he seemed to, from my perspective, seemed to, you know, do all right. You know, seemed to have a good grasp on things. But like I say, I don't know. It's just, you know, some English guy's view on, you know, Japanese politics, when I don't, you know, like I say, I don't follow it, I don't keep up with it. All I know is that happened. I believe he's resigned for health reasons. But there you go. That's my thoughts on Shinzo. Nope. Hello there from someone else there. Good morning to you all. Of course, we've had yet more Boris gaffes this week when Boris went to school. That sounds like a TV program in the making, when Boris went to school, or like one of those, you know, really early reading books that you have. What were they called? Biff and Chip books. That's it. That's what they're called over here. And you know, you had Kipper and his magic key. Oh, that takes me back to my youth. So Boris went to school, and Boris got absolutely outplayed of all people, by a librarian, which was hilarious. He was giving this talk and speech in front of a podium, how about it's, it's safe for schools to reopen, even though that's, somewhat very doubtful at the moment. We haven't got COVID under control, and we've seen before. In fact, I think it was only just a couple of weeks. There was a school that had an outbreak, and the entire staff and school just had to, the school had to close. So this idea of you're going to get any form of like proper continuity at schools, really, it's just a complete fantasy. You're not. There's no proper. Again, the government haven't released any proper guidelines. They've left it really up to schools. And going back to the librarian, so I've got off topic on there, but the librarian placed a load of books facing forward, and the whole point of them was they were all books about dystopian futures and terrible leaders. So it just got to a point where you're just like, okay. it just got beyond a joke. And that's not even the best part, because then, as usual, there's a good photo opportunity for Boris to go into a classroom and talk to kids, talk to students. And while the camera's looking at Boris and he's talking to these kids, he's telling them, oh, what's he going? Oh yes, I'm so happy that you're not worried about the coronavirus, because there's nothing to worry about. That's my Boris impression. I'm sorry, it's so terrible. And in the photo, you can see that when he's doing it, you can see the kids, the nicely spaced out, good, social distanced classroom. And then he finishes his speech and he just goes woomph away in probably the most dramatic way possible. He just goes up and he just disappears out of the room. And then, as he's leaving, the camera just pans to the other side of the room, and you literally see all the kids on the other side of the classroom, all packed in together, not even socially distanced at all. And then one of the best things was one of the kids just goes, "Was that real?" I'm just like, I know it shouldn't be funny. It's terrifying, but bless that kid's cotton socks. Because seriously, the fact that he just said, "Was that real?" Just yes, that will go down in the pantheon of famous lines of funny reactions kids have often had to politicians. Was that real? But the more, of course, worrying thing was that you had the Prime Minister set up a photo op, and essentially this photo op was essentially designed to make sure that kids were safe in going back to school. And we were just shown very clearly, as we've just said, when that camera panned and you saw the entire other side of that classroom and all the kids were just packed together like it was just a normal, school day. No coronavirus at all. And there is, parents, I can sympathise with them, because it does probably look like, because we've been unable to get the coronavirus under control during the summer, we're probably going to have a big outbreak uh, during the winter. The idea of a second wave happening is not beyond reason. It really isn't, unfortunately. And we are, oof, and that's going to collide with, like I say, no deal Brexit and that. And we've seen the the report. Oop. So, how truthfully, I don't know what the numbers are, to be honest. I don't know what they were, but I can tell you we've got the cases are back up on the rise again. Partly because, again, we've left lockdown, and people are, they're moving around again. People are going back to work, and of course schools will soon be going back as well, and that's going to cause an even bigger disaster. Because imagine this, let's say, because this is how like this can actually spread, because from everything we've seen, kids are somewhat okay from the coronavirus. They can still get it. We have had deaths of children from the coronavirus, but it's quite rare. It tends to be more in adults than in kids when they get it. But kids can be carriers of it, and of course, as we know, it takes about 2 weeks from you getting it, the incubation period, from it to become a real problem. So imagine, let's say you're a frontline worker who works in a shop. Let's say your mum works in Primark and your dad works in an office, maybe somewhere, and he's been told, he's got to go back to the office now because, I can't remember which Tory MP said it, but apparently, it's safe to go back to work. Of course, they're desperate to try and end furlough as quickly as possible, and of course it's going to be an absolute disaster when that happens, because the coronavirus has hit other businesses more effectively than others. Digital marketing, for example, the one industry sort of I work in, it hasn't really been a massive disruption because it's predominantly a digital field, so everyone's just been able to, grab the laptops and just go work from home. However, not so in other things like manufacturing, construction, anything that's sort of like a physical element. Again, we are a service-based economy. We have huge things. Of course, the other thing that recently, I don't know if you've heard about it, but Greggs, the big pastry manufacturers in the UK that have tons of shops up and down the country, their factory up in Leeds has got the virus. They had a confirmed outbreak there, and they've had to shut it down. So they've had to shut all the production down to a point where all the Greggs up in the northeast, I think it is, and some in the northwest that got supplied from that centre have also had to shut as well. So you can see the knock-on effect just one outbreak can actually have. It's actually quite worrying. And of course, you get back to a situation in schools where, what's the average population of a school? It must be about 600 people working in like a primary school, I'm guessing, something like that, depending on the size, of course. And then you get to a secondary school, or even colleges and universities, which is even more the more worrying thing, because you're going to have people coming from all over the country to these universities, and that's going to cause an outbreak. That's going to make things worse. Freshers Week is going to be an absolute coronavirus soup for many of these people. And it is going to be absolute chaos. And you get back to the schools of, let's say that one family and that kid has been infected. We know for a fact that coronavirus, one of the reasons why why we're so worried about it, is because it's got such a high transmission rate about it. And it's what, if you remember right back at the start, if you've got the coronavirus if you unknowingly have it and you don't know about it and you go out, you can infect about 10 people, and then that other person that you infect can go on and infect another 10 people. So it's quite it spreads quite rapidly, and of course has the potential to cause fatalities. So we're all very, very worried about it. And it gets to a point where, if you imagine that in a school, of that family sends their kid in, maybe their mum got it from working in the shop that she works in, frontline worker, bang, gets it. The kid probably gets it as well. That 2-week transmission period for it to become into fruition. He goes to school, probably infects his entire class. So what, an average class size in the UK is about, what, I want to say 35 to 40 probably. It's normally where it comes around. And you have, all those people, all those kids get infected. Not to mention, of course, you've got, quote, playtime or, lunchtime when they're going to be interacting with other kids. So he's probably going to infect, kids from other classes, potentially other teachers as well. And then all those kids go home and then they transfer it to their, to their parents. And then those parents infect people at their work. It's just absolute chaos. Really, it really is. And I think, again, like at the moment, we're seeing a spike in cases. I think when we get to, September's only a couple of weeks away, and you're going to see a big spike in cases in all these school areas. It's going to be what can you really do about it? It's going to be awful. We're just going to go back to square one, and then the government will absolutely refuse to go into lockdown again, because they saw what happened to the economy. We're still in a recession, by the way. No sign of recovery yet. Of course, our economy got wiped out by like 20%, which is like the last 2 decades of work done to build up the UK economy, just wiped out. And who says we're not going back to the 80s? So, to be honest, if you're a parent and you're worried about, sending your child back to school, then absolutely you've got every right to be worried about what the safety of your child. Not only the safety of your child, but what if your child comes back infected with coronavirus? You probably won't realise it, but that's how these infections happen. And it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. And of course, we have yet another crisis caused by Boris. And And of course, we come round now to talking about Brexit. News, of course, week that not only negotiations didn't go anywhere, they got stalled again. Because as is usual, the UK was making unrealistic demands. Because we've said this before, the EU is not going to compromise, the single market, which it hasn't, compromised for anyone else when it comes to these trade deals. Oh, good morning there to someone. Welcome. Just joined us in time for Brexit chat. Oh, Brexit chat. Nearly slipped there. Apologies for not reading the comments as much this morning. Like I say, I'm more trying to stay on my feet this morning. It's quite muddy underfoot and it's very, very slippy. So the chances of me slipping and falling on my ass are quite high. Oh, I just seen someone's giving me some money there. Thank you very much. Who was that from? Stop Karaoke, I think that was. Oh, your children go back on Monday. Good luck. That's all I can say. It's going to be, as we said before in the early, it's going to be an absolute disaster. There's going to be a massive spike because of it, and it's not just kids going back to school. It's people going to colleges, universities. They've all got to start up again. Universities might not be such a problem, but the problem is when you get all these, kids that are home away for the first time, they want to go out and be independent. And of course, that means Freshers Week. And if you've ever been to university, you know what Freshers Week's like. That's why I said it's going to be complete pea soup in Freshers Week. It's going to be an absolute disaster. It really is. But anyway, back to Brexit. So, what's happened this week? Well, as usual, nothing's actually happened. So, 12 likes and 51 people watching. Come on, we've got to hit the like button for nothing happening for Brexit this week, as usual. So, nothing's happened again, and it really is such a god-awful situation that we're in. We're in a situation of, we know the deadline's coming, we can see it, and we know what's going to happen. And of course the Brexiteers are like, whatever, we're fine with it happening, because we can blame all this, all the economic downturn, all these crises on on the coronavirus. So it doesn't really matter to us what happens, that it's no deal Brexit, because it's sort of what they wanted right from the get-go. So all this talk during the referendum of doing deals and being like Norway, was complete nonsense from the start. So we know that there is going to be a huge crisis coming, and this isn't the coronavirus where it just happened out of nowhere and the government failed to respond. This is going to be a crisis of the government's own making, which is even more shocking. And you roll into the fact of we've had another round of negotiations where our chief negotiator has acted more like a messenger boy from, from the UK to Brussels, and has not done any negotiating. And this is where we get into a real serious problem, because one of the things we've always said about Brexit was always this ideological child of the Tories. It's got no policies or anything or laws attached to it what to do. It's just this fantasy that they have. It's what comes after that we should be more worried about. But as usual, we are completely stuck in an absolute god-awful situation of we don't know what we're going to get. Now, we sort of know what we're going to get because the government have been writing documents and essays and white papers about the potential damages. Of course, the one that got leaked of troops on the streets to quell civil unrest. What a consequence of a no deal Brexit. How wonderful that is. And we're at that stage of, especially with the coronavirus, you'd think that Boris would have the sense to maybe go, yeah, we can't do it at this moment in time, so we're going to extend the transition period. Now, if Boris went to Europe and said, we're going to extend the transition period by about a year because, coronavirus, or ask for, more time, I'm pretty sure the EU at that point would give him the time he wanted. I can't see any reason, to be honest, why they wouldn't. It's potentially what will happen. And of course, we've got these ridiculous notions of what will happen. The Brexiteers have had this fantasy for years that the EU does deals at like the 11th hour. And of course, that's not true. And the idea that the negotiations, quote, don't take place, they do take place. The EU are very good at negotiating, and all this time, and all because the deals, quote, get done at the 11th hour, is because they are constantly negotiating and that there is progress. We've seen these from years and years of trade talks from the EU, because the EU has to be open about its trade talks. It's why America doesn't like doing deals with the EU, even though apparently they've just done one. So it's all out in the open. They're the only bloc that do trade deals out in the open. All the other blocs are done behind closed doors. No one knows what's in the deal until it's put on the dotted line. And something from Bakura, yeah, the Daily Mail gave the idea that there'd be no penalties at all. I'm guessing that's about a no deal. But yeah, that's right. They think that there's this going to be fantasy with, oh, no deal Brexit, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. No problem at all, is what they're going to say. And it's going to be absolute disastrous. Completely and utterly disastrous. I mean, you've only got to look at that leaked document that we went over. It's going to be shocking. It really, really is. And you've got all that chaos crumpling on, and then you've got the fact that the Tories are now once again trying to blame the EU for their lack of negotiating skills. that's essentially what's going to happen. And we're at that stage of, well, we warned you, so we're just going to let it happen. I'm with the pretty much the majority. I think I'm probably the majority of like Remainers who are just like, well, we tried, we warned you, and now we're just going to let it happen. Because sooner or later, you know, Brexit has always been a battle of the Brexiteers' fantasies versus the realities of a modern economies, the fact that Britain is now a service economy, that it has, you know, benefited massively from being in the EU and being in the single market and having access, you know, completely, you know, unfettered access to the EU's markets, and of course through them other trade deals. This is going to have an absolute knock-on effect, because we've said this, I keep on saying this before, and it's becoming sort of a catchphrase for me. We've said this before. You know, there will be consequences, and the Brexiteers were constantly downplaying Project Fear. There's going to be no consequences to Brexit. You're like, don't think so. Don't think so. And you've got a, there's got to be, I've said it before, there's going to be a bizarre, real sense and awakening, but it's going to be, as I've said before, I keep on, you know, the space on the back of my wall, waiting for, you know, when the Daily Mail, Express, or whatever, print that wonderful, wonderful front page headline of, you know, this isn't the Brexit we voted for. And it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Oh. Oh, all right, okay. So, okay, Bakura. Well, now we know. And it's going to be an absolute, and this is going to be a man-made disaster. And I don't see any way at all in which, you know, the Tories are going to be able to spin this. Because they had the option to extend the transition period. Of course, Boris Johnson put it into law that the transition period cannot be extended. So we've got a, you know, a completely bizarre, you know, it's not even, the funny thing is, it's not a Mexican standoff, it's an ideologue arguing, you know, with a scientist. That's what it is. This is what it reminds me of. If you ever remember back in the day of YouTube when it first started, and you had sort of the atheist community, and you know, and scientists talking back against oh, Merci to you from Michel Barnier. I love that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barnier. Thank you very much. Your support is much appreciated on this channel. Oh, that's made me smile. Oh. Yeah. Bowler Hat Man, the only YouTube channel to be financially supported by Michel Barnier. You've seen it here first, folks. Oh, we've got a doggo. Oh. Don't know, can we see him? Oh no, can't see him. Oh, lovely little basset hound there. And it's so bizarre. It really is. It's going to be. I don't know how they do it. How you turn it around and flip it onto the EU and say it's their fault. And it's going to be funny to watch the things like, the Daily Express, the Daily Mail, try and spin it that's what's happened has been, a good thing. I really can't see them spinning it out that way. That's why I've said on, the back of my wall, I'm waiting for those, those newspapers to print that and that be their front page, because I'll be the first time ever that I buy those newspapers, and for nothing other than well, told you so, and just go as a very useful prompt to when we start talking about the aftermath and the consequences of Brexit, especially the unseen consequences. I mean, one of the things that I've talked about briefly on this channel is the fact that there's not only going to be a trade barrier, but there is also going to be a digital barrier to do with data and how that's handled. That will also be a big thing, and that will do huge damage, because if you're let's say you're providing a service, as most IT companies do, let's say you're providing an app, or you provide I don't know, let's say you make, tell you what, a perfect example actually. A friend of my company, he works in, makes software that supports gyms. So the gyms have all their membership database and all that, if you've ever seen a gym's website and the system of how it activates, whether they give you a fob or you put your number in, it lets you in through the vacuum sealed door, whatever. That's a service. Now what happens if that gym is in Europe? What are going to be the consequences of data transfer between a gym somewhere in Europe, let's say France, and a gym going back to the main system in the UK? Because there's going to be a digital barrier there. How that's going to affect many UK businesses that have similar systems set up like that, we don't know. It could mean that you see all those systems jump to European providers, which makes British businesses that provide that type of support completely uncompetitive in a European market. And that could mean hundreds of thousands of pounds lost. And you don't see a lot of this. Is one of the things that I'm sort of worried about, because you don't see a lot of people talk about that. And I'm like, that's going to be quite a problem when it comes. I have to be worried about that. Have to be worried about that. It's going to happen, and it's just a case of when, and the unintended consequences of Brexit, of what is going to happen, because there will be other problems of it happening. Oh, we've got horses here. Thumbs up for the horses joining us today on the stream. Nope. Nope. Squelch, squelch, squelch. Nope. There we go. Nope. But it will have unintended consequences. And I really do wonder if the things like the the digital wall being erected because we're not part of the EU. How that's going to affect, UK businesses, and it will have an effect. It will have a knock-on effect on them. It's just, what is it going to be, and how severe? Yeah, I definitely should have worn my wellies today. It is not walking boots weather today. And that's what I worry about. Now, I've got a friend who I've known for quite a while, and he's a digital lawyer. That's what he specialises in. He specialises in sort of digital law, and I've wanted to try and get him to do an interview on this channel and just talk about, consequences of what this actually been. And I think I'm gonna have to try and get him at some point. I wonder if at one time we might have, that might be a good idea. Depending on how lockdown goes and whatnot, so I might try and invite him out for a pint, and we'll do a live stream, and then you can ask him questions at the same time as I'm asking them, because I think that will be a good idea for a stream. So lock that away for future reference, because that's one thing I'd love to pick his brains about, because he talks about that quite a lot. It's what his job is. The matter is just trying to get him, because he is actually, because of what he does, he's actually quite a popular figure, talking at many law conferences, not only in the UK but throughout Europe itself. So that will be quite interesting for him. So I suspect he will be quite knowledgeable on that. So definitely, I'm going to have to try and get him. And now, unfortunately, we've got to talk about, because I'm really hesitant to talk about this, because really, at this moment in time, and as was always back in the past, talking about, quote, immigrants, is not an issue. Immigrants are not an issue in this country, despite what the right wing and the Conservatives and the right-wing press will tell you that they are. They are just not an issue. The idea that an immigrant is a problem in this country is not the issue. And it's quite interesting, because when you look at, like, say, America, they're always very split when they talk about illegal immigration, but we're okay with legal immigration. It's just the illegal immigration we worry about. And of course, in the UK, illegal immigration is, I think it's like less than 1% that it happens. It's really, really low, to a point where it's just like, it's really not an issue. So the right wing in this country have had to really foster this complete, aggressive stance and policy against all immigrants, regardless. And you've seen this recently. Tabloid Corrections, a really good Facebook page to follow. If you follow it, if you don't follow it, go and follow it. It's very, very good at pointing out mistakes that the right-wing press make in the UK, in this country. They showed a correction recently of the story ran from the Daily Mail that a, quote, Romanian woman went into a job centre to demand £450 a month, and that, you know, the paper was outraged that this immigrant could go into a job centre and demand such a high sum from the job centre. Now, the story itself, if you read it like that and you're a right winger, it's going to completely get something stuck in their craws. And of course, complete ouch. Now, of course, what really happened is that the woman herself had been in the UK since she was 3. That was the first thing. So she was here legally. The next thing was that she was going through a divorce, and that she was trying to get help from the government to help support her during this divorce, during her stay from these 3 kids. Oh, that's 20 something. Is that North Korean money? Yeah. Thank you very much for that support there. Thank you very much. Always much appreciated. Anyway, back to our story. So she was, she was going through a divorce, and she had 3 kids who were all born in the UK, by the way. So all those 3 kids are official UK citizens, and she needed help. And if you look at what she was entitled to from the job centre, £435, I think it was what she was entitled to. That includes her universal credit, money to help pay her rent, and money to help support her 3 kids as well. And she was entitled to it. Now, what obviously ended up happening is she got turned down by the job centre. We don't know why that happened. Oh, there's a heron there. She got turned down by the job centre. We don't know why she got turned down by the job centre. But to make sure she got money to help, support her family going through this somewhat difficult time for her, which was a divorce, which she was going through, she went and got a job as a cleaner. Now, really, when you hear that story, what it really tells you is here was a woman who was going through an incredibly rough patch, and to help support her family in a situation that she was in, she went out and got a job, which is completely opposite of what most right-wing newspapers reported that story as. They reported it just as here's another immigrant, again reported wrongly, that was coming to take hard-won British money. It just goes to show you how really pointless, how truly pointless this discussion is, because it's a complete smokescreen into what's really happening, in this country. We've got much more, bigger problems to deal with than, worrying about immigrants. It really is a non-issue, really is. We don't have a problem with immigration in this country as much as the right wing would like to tell you that there is. And you've got also had the whole thing with, you know, Farage and the hotel. I don't know if you've kept up with that story, but I'll just go over it quickly for those that don't know. There was a group of asylum seekers that had come to the UK, and they need to be put up during this time. Obviously, coronavirus is a thing as well, and you may or may not know, but lots of hotels are really struggling at this moment. So when you know, the government, came a knocking to say, can you house these asylum seekers until we can get them processed and sorted through? Now bear in mind, this hotel hadn't had any paying customers for quite some time. So what's their reaction going to be? Of course, bring them in, we'll look after them. And this was keeping you know, a hotel which is probably, if you think about it staff wise, quite a large number of staff employed, so that they didn't have to furlough them. And what happens is Farage finds out about this, gets in his complete and utter, you know, outrage mode of how dare these immigrants come and stay in, you know, luxury hotels. Well, no one else was in them. Not only that, but it's keeping that business going during that difficult time. You then have, obviously after this quote outrage, the government apologised for its mistake, even though that situation was only temporary. And what's happened to the hotel now? That hotel now has had to furlough most of its staff, and it's had to issue some notices of redundancy to some of the staff, because they've lost that income, are going to have to you know, potentially close down and lay off people, and that's not what they wanted to do. So Nigel Farage, by being so angry at people because they're not from this country, and you know, they need asylum, they need a safe place to stay. And by the way, when you look at statistics for asylum seekers, you've only got to go back to, if you can remember, during the 90s, the Bosnia crisis. Oh, thank you very much. Oh. So, never kick down people with less power than you. They never have caused. There you go. They cause the problems. Quoting the brewer of the fifth column. So, thank you very much for that support there. And this becomes the problem of you know, of the right wing. They just go after people who are in need of help, who, you know, in any other day and age, you know, the difference between them and someone in the UK just happens to be luck of the birth of where they were born. And going back to, again, the Bosnia crisis in the 90s, if you remember, it was exactly the same thing. The right-wing press was up in arms. How dare all these Bosnians and Serbs come to this country taking taxpayer money, pardon me, from you know, the good people of the UK. Now, what happened after that crisis came? Over, I think it was about 96% of all those asylum seekers returned back home. You know, these people are not coming to this country to stay. They're coming to this country because they need somewhere because they're worried about their families' safety. You know, it's just simple matter of compassion, and it makes me so worried that it seems to be in this country we've lost the simple act of being compassionate to people, and that worries me. That really does worry me. You know, and being compassionate is, you know, it extends to things like, you know, the Home Office, you know, going after, you know, immigrants so hard. We saw it during the Windrush scandal. People who had all their right to stay in this country, just suddenly had it taken away from them. Some of them who had never even been to Jamaica or anywhere in those Caribbean islands before, didn't even speak the language, were suddenly said, yeah, you have to go back there now. They don't know anything about that country, or, you know, they've got nothing there. So, and this was also, again, to point it back, a big contributor to Brexit, because obviously you had the migrant crisis going on and people, you know, fleeing from Syria because of, you know, the situation still going on in Syria. If the right wing was so serious about, quote, all lives matter, then the right wing should be pushing for the UN to intervene in Syria, to put an end to the conflict that's going on in Syria, but they're not. If all lives matter, they'd make sure that the Royal Navy wasn't out there to deter these crossings. They'd be out there to make sure that people didn't drown in these crossings. They'd be out there to help save lives rather than to deter crossings, and to be acting as a deterrent to crossings. If they were really serious, again, about all lives matter, there would be a way that asylum seekers could process their applications digitally, or be able to process their applications over in France, so that then they didn't have to make that deadly channel crossing to get here, to then be able to have to process their applications. And it's just as simple as that. It really is. And it just goes to show you that this whole migrant story is nothing but a complete distraction to the real issues that are going on in this country. And these people are set up to be scapegoats. And it's not just migrants as well. This applies to the working class of this country. And we've already seen it being prepared for the furlough disaster that's going to come upon us, because more and more people are going to get laid off and lose their jobs. The job market, I can tell you now from actually being in this awful time, trying to apply and get jobs, is an absolute nightmare. Really is. I asked, I got the opportunity to ask in an interview recently how many applications they'd had. They'd had over 500 applications. It was absolutely really shocking. And then, as a really good example of a company that's actually doing good business, so please do go and support this business. They're called Northern Monk. They are an incredible brewery. They make fantastic beers. So you should absolutely go and support them, because what they've done is absolutely fantastic. So they recently applied for a packer job, someone to help pack the beers into the crates and whatnot. They got over, normally they would get about between 60 applications from what they said. They got well over 1,000, and they still kept on getting them, to a point where they realised that we have to do something to help these people. So not only are they going to help people apply for this job, but they're also going to help them apply for other jobs. They're going to give them CV templates. They're going to respond, they're going to try and attempt to respond to every single applicant and give them advice about how to update their CV, things they need to do. And about 50 of them are going to be given mock interviews so that they know and have interview experience and can get coached in how to conduct interviews properly. That company gets my support. I'll tell you now, if I when I see Northern Monk on tap or in the shops, they get my support. So please do, when you're making your choice of beers to buy. I know that there are other options to buy, of course, in the UK, but if you do happen to see Northern Monk on sale in your local brewery or shop or pub, please do buy a pint and support them, because quite frankly, what they've done to support especially the working class in this country, to help people go out and find jobs, goes above and beyond what any other company is doing. And I can't say enough, but please do support them in that. So if you do see their beers, try it out, and support them, because as a company they don't have to do that. They could just ignore all those applications. What I've just said that they're doing, they do not have to do, but they've chosen as a bit of corporate responsibility to help people in this time. And I can't say how amazing it is to see a company do something like that. So please do go and support them. As I said, they do have a website where you can go buy beers. I'm chilling for them quite hard. I do realise that, but I think when a company does stuff like this, going above and beyond what a normal company would do, you've got to support them when they do stuff like that. So thank you very much for you all joining us today. It's been an absolute fantastic, cracking walk. Sorry for not reading as much comments as I normally do, but I don't know if you can see it there. It's been very, very muddy on this path, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I've had a few close calls of me slipping over there and falling over. So thank you very much for joining us. Please do like the stream. It does help the channel out massively. If you are new to the channel, you've never seen me before, hi, I'm Bowler Hatman. We talk about British politics and Brexit and the train wreck that is soon to be. And trust me, it's not just the train wreck, it's the crash and the warm glow after show of the train crash as well, that we can all warm ourselves around that collective fire. So it's going to be fun. So do subscribe to that. Thank you for the people who have donated during this channel, during this video. Thank you so much. Your support is absolutely much appreciated during this time. If you would like to support the channel, there is down below links to my Patreon page and to a one-off donation link should you like to support the channel that way. So, as always, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely wonderful. And remember, if you can't be safe, be sensible. and enjoy your weekends, because I'm going to go and, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm going to go see a friend today. We're going to go into a beer garden. It's going to be wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us today. So thank you, and we'll see you all next time.